Okay, for this particular recording, we're going to start with Roman numeral 3, the neuroanatomy and neurochemistry of sleep. We've already mentioned the idea that the pineal gland has a lot of melatonin in it, and the idea that melatonin might play an important role in sleep behavior. Some of your postings were basically reflecting that idea. Another structure, more in the hindbrain, is called the raphe nucleus. The raphe nucleus has a lot of serotonin in it. So there's actually been a lot of studies showing that, yeah, if you can help out serotonin, will that actually help people with sleep as well? Another structure that seems to be very important, not too far from the raphe, is the pons. It's also in the hindbrain. Turns out that there's a lot of acetylcholine in the pons, and very interesting, if you flip down on the pages, there's actually a very interesting phenomenon that happens if you go to where I have the letter C. It says the blockage of pontogeniculate occipital waves in the cat lateral geniculate nucleus by nicotinic antagonist. Boy, that's a lot of terms there. One of the very interesting things we know, though, is that it seems right before people go into REM sleep and the dreaming that goes on, is we start to see, if we're watching the electrophysiology, we start to see little waves happen that first start in the pons, the hindbrain, the pons, and you see some waves happening there, and then they start happening in the geniculate. And the geniculate is another word for the thalamus. It's a specific part of the thalamus that you get these waves happening in the geniculate, and then you start seeing a spike of waves in the occipital lobe. And what a lot of people think this might actually mean is when you go into REM sleep, you do a lot of the dreaming. And these dreams, what do you do when you're dreaming? You see a lot of visual images. They seem real to you. So a lot of people think that these dreams might be precipitated by these PGO waves, that this might be the predictor of when you're going into REM sleep and dreaming. Because, of course, the occipital lobe has all the visual centers of the brain. The thalamus is very connected to memories and emotion, and the pons is where a lot of this is happening as well. So the reason I put this abstract here was just this idea that acetylcholine seems to be released at this point, and these PGO waves seem to predict people who are going into REM sleep. And finally, the last structure that seems to be implicated in sleep and being awake is called the locus coeruleus. Also in the hindbrain, there's a ton of norepinephrine in this area, and many of the drugs that people take to try to stay awake are based on norepinephrine agonist for the locus coeruleus. The other key idea I kind of want to share with you here, and the reason I share these structures and their neurotransmitters, there's a lot of people who kind of have the idea, once again, of type reductionism. Well, if we can figure out, do you remember what the idea of type reductionism is? If we can figure out what neurotransmitter is responsible for which behavior, then if we can just fix that, then maybe we can fix all the problems related to sleep and insomnia and so forth. It's probably not that simple. A lot of people think serotonin is very related to sleep, but it's not that simple that it's just one neurotransmitter that's doing each of these various functions. So you should know these basic ideas and be able to understand them, but also understand the idea that a lot of people have this belief that there's this kind of type reductionism, that if we just go and fix a neurotransmitter, we can fix the whole sleep problem. So let's move on now into Roman numeral 4, sleep disorders. The most prevalent sleep disorder we know, we'll spend most of the time on here, insomnia. Many of you probably know insomnia quite well. There tends to be 3 different types of insomnia. There's one type that's called onset insomnia, where you basically have trouble falling asleep. There is maintenance insomnia. This is the insomnia where you can fall asleep, but you keep waking up in the middle of the night. And then the third type is called termination insomnia. Not to be confused with termination anxiety. Termination insomnia is where you just wake up way too early in the morning. So these are the 3 types of insomnia that seem to happen, and I want to go into this idea of medications and kind of the psychopharmacology behind some of these medications and what they do, and even some of the neurochemistry of things. One of the key receptors, and actually let me start with neurochemistry. If you look on the very back page of your outline, one of the most important receptors for the induction of, actually it's more related to anxiety than sleep. So I'm actually doing it a little bit wrong here. Never mind with the last page here. Some of the medications that actually work for sleep. Alcohol. Some of you talked about Benadryl with the idea here. The idea of Benadryl and alcohol, do they actually cause some positive impact for sleep? The answer is yes. But the problem is there are a lot of side effects to these things. You can actually become very dependent on alcohol or Benadryl to get you to sleep. Also, there tends to be, as soon as you stop taking these products, there's rebound with insomnia. Tolerance develops where you need more of these products to get into sleep. And then the other thing they notice is when you're taking products like alcohol and Benadryl, it actually tends to decrease the amount of REM sleep you have in you. So this can be a real problem. Barbiturates, things like phenobarbital, they actually work pretty well for getting you in a sedated way, but once again, they don't actually help out with getting you REM sleep, and barbiturates can also be very addictive as well. And actually, we can go back to the picture at the end of your notes here. Barbiturates and the benzodiazepines, things like Valium and Xanax, they actually work through anxiety at the GABA receptor. And when you take things like barbiturates and benzodiazepines and even some of the things like Lunesta and so forth, they actually tend to increase the amount of GABA binding, and they'll actually open up a chloride channel. And so they'll cause chloride to rush in, which will cause you to have decreased action potentials. They actually cause IPSPs, and they'll tend to decrease anxiety and also increase sleep as well. So Lunesta, Ambien, and Sonata are all kind of working at this GABA receptor, both for anxiety and as well as to help people sleep as well. Finally, and some of you noted this, a new drug that's based on melatonin, Rameltion, I think it's the name of the pronunciation, that helps you with sleep as well. And I don't see any big problem with that. Often considered a natural food or a natural product here, melatonin is in your brain, and if you can actually have melatonin receptor agonist, that doesn't surprise me that should work pretty well for sleep. So you should outline kind of the main ideas of insomnia here. And if you actually look at Roman numeral 5 here, what I'd like you to do is go to the American Sleep Association and summarize 5 sleep hygienic recommendations. Sleep hygiene is the idea of the behavioral things you do. The idea of doing exercise maybe in the middle of the day to get you to sleep better. Obviously, there's an exercise couples do at night to help them sleep better. Maybe I shouldn't say anything more than that because, of course, I already have a daughter. But sleep hygiene things you can do in the environment to make sure that you'll sleep well. And then go to the American Academy of Sleep Medicine and summarize in a paragraph 3 things that might help for management of insomnia that map to this as well. Finally, the last couple of disorders I want to mention here, apnea. Apnea is a problem where you actually have you're not breathing properly and you have a lot of snoring going on and you can't sleep well at night. The main treatment for that is something called CPAP. We actually hook up a breathing tube and it pumps in the air and the oxygen while you sleep, and that can actually help many times with the apnea. Narcolepsy. Narcolepsy is where you have attacks of falling asleep, and your book has information on these as well. And for narcolepsy, what they do is they give drugs that actually work with the locus coeruleus and increasing norepinephrine to keep you awake. So amphetamines and some of those products help with keeping people awake with narcolepsy. And then the final disorder that is related to sleep as well is the disease of epilepsy. When people have epileptic attacks, my daughter unfortunately has epilepsy. She has an episode maybe once every 4 or 5 months. Your brain, basically, what's going on with epilepsy is there's one key hypothesis that says there's not enough GABA working in your brain and there's too much glutamate. Remember, GABA is the main inhibitory neurotransmitter in your brain. Glutamate is the excitatory neurotransmitter in your brain. So the idea is many times the drugs used to help people with epilepsy will get more GABA to work in your brain. Dilantin is one of the products used for epilepsy. It increases GABA levels and will help people with epilepsy not have as many seizures. So EEG recordings many times are done with epileptic people as well. Melatonin can be good. I'm looking at these other abstracts here. PGO waves predicting the idea of REM sleep. Norepinephrine in the locus coeruleus, that really predicts slow wave sleep and the idea that you're in your deepest stage of sleep. So you should kind of summarize that in the GABA molecule as well. The products used to help people with sleep can actually be good, but you got to be very careful for addiction going on. And once again, this idea of type reductionism. Is it that easy? You can separate sleep things from anxiety things. The drugs are pretty good these days, but certainly there are going to be better products in the future to help these disorders as well. So hopefully I've made some good sense here. Use your chapter on Chapter 9 to add more details, and go to the American Academy of Sleep Medicine and the American Sleep Association to talk a little more about insomnia. Thank you. Bye-bye.